Hello and welcome back to Mindful Mischief. My name is Kari, school counselor and the host leading the conversation for episode 9 on the podcast here. Joining me are my two co-hosts, Mrs. Lisa Feitz and Dr. Martinez. Hi, friends.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
So our goal has always been to give parents in the community the ability to listen to a discussion about the 10 chapters in Conscious Discipline. It is under my computer. We'll get there. There we go. By Dr. Becky Bailey. And then just have a fun conversation talking about parenting and what's going on in the school, lots of different things. Before I go any further, I wanted to take a moment and introduce our dynamic duo here. So for this week, we have some very special guests. We have Dr. Andrew Doyle. He's a parent as well as a school board member. And then we have his wife, Mrs. Jill Doyle, kindergarten teacher and parent here. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome.
You guys, I've been really excited for this episode. Since I saw you guys on the list, I was like, this is going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. Don't disappoint.
But you won't. We know you won't.
It's fine.
So, Jill, can we start with you? Let's do a 1-minute intro. Who you are, connection to LaVille, and what is the most outlandish conspiracy theory?
You did it.
I did. The most outlandish conspiracy theory you'd actually believe if you had irrefutable proof.
Okay. My name is Jill Doyle. I was born and raised in Lakeville. I'm a 2001 graduate of LaVille High School. My mother graduated from LaVille, my siblings, my cousins, and now I have 2 sons who will be future LaVille graduates. So
I love that.
Yeah, I love this community. I love this area. And fun fact, I was voted most school-spirited in 2001, and I feel like I've lived up to that title. I've tried.
I think you do. I think you totally do.
Definitely.
And we love it. Okay, so same question. So
Sure.
who you are, connection to LaVille, and then your fun conspiracy theory.
So my name is Andrew. My folks actually both graduated from LaVille in 1969 and 70 respectively with my father and mother. And so second generation Lancer. My siblings all graduated and went through LaVille system. Of course, our kids are now. I've had nephews go through the system as well, so there's a strong connection with La Paz, Lakeville, just this area, LaVille. And so currently I'm on the school board, and I'm hoping to just help the community continue to improve with the initiatives that we've set forth as a school corporation. And conspiracy theory, I guess I would believe this if I could prove it, or it could be proved, that there's only one producer of butter, or there's only one producer of cream cheese out there. There's really only one, is the conspiracy thought. And they just put a different label on it.
But isn't that like Costco? Like
Or Walmart
they
putting their name
pay
on.
someone else, like it's the same brand,
That's
and then they
where
put
I'm
a different
going.
label on it.
That's
like
where I'm
isn't
going.
that
I think
commonly known?
Lisa looks like she's going to fight you on this.
That's all right. I
No.
think there's just one.
I've just never thought about it. I actually agree very much
Sticks
so.
of butter. Sticks of butter.
We
they all come
talked
from
about
cows
butter
anyway.
in
About
yesterday's
yesterday.
episode. Who doesn't love butter? Call me Paula Dean. Question though, were you guys high school sweethearts?
Yes.
We were, yes.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, we were voted cutest couple.
Yeah.
Oh, still
You should've
today,
led
still
with
voted
that.
as
Yeah.
cutest couple.
You should have
right?
led
It
with
feels
that.
like there's a T-shirt somewhere, a combination that you should be wearing around together. Yeah.
No, that would be obnoxious. And I'm
Love
never
it.
obnoxious, right, Andrew?
Right.
No, but brings the fun at all times.
True.
If we're going to positive intent, that's what we're talking about
Positive
today,
intent.
right?
You're right. See, I just...
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Set the stage.
So we have some fun things. Did we get both conspiracy theories, or did we skip it?
I skipped mine
No.
Why'd you skip yours?
because I forgot.
Okay.
No, you didn't.
No, it's early.
The lights are bright. It's
No,
a lot of pressure.
remember.
Mine is, I believe all fashion designers get together and say, what is the most outlandish, weird thing we can create, and we're going to put it down that runway, and then we're going to watch everybody lose their minds over it.
Yeah.
And we're all going to sit there and laugh at people wearing
Yeah.
this
How dumb can we make people
hideous.
look?
Yeah.
And they're doing a good job sometimes.
do an amazing
They do a
job
great
of it.
job at it sometimes. Awesome. All right, hosts. I went right for it. I thought it'd be fun. Tell me your conspiracy theory. I would love to hear it.
I'll
And
jump
then
in.
I've got friends. behind us.
Have you ever noticed that mailboxes have like colored stickers on them sometimes? And they're not always the same? Yeah? No?
No.
Next time you...
Like the reflector stickers so
No,
that
just
people
like
see them in
stickers,
the
like-
night.
So we don't hit
there
them?
might be stickers randomly on mailboxes,
And what
right?
do you think that means?
Little round ones, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think it
Different
means?
ones, blue, yellow, orange, red. There's a conspiracy
Stop.
that
So I can see your computer and you need to just stop.
marks the mailboxes
FEMA?
with different color. Yes, FEMA with different colored dots to indicate the disposition of residents when it comes time for the New World Order. So you should probably pay attention to your mailbox color and figure out where you land when it all comes down.
FEMA, I don't have a mailbox
Yeah.
sticker. Can you help me out?
So what do they do for those with post office boxes?
I don't know.
Do you think they're colored on the
They don't
inside?
have to worry about them because
Yeah.
they live in the cities and they can poison the water supply.
Yeah,
True.
They're taken care of.
Yeah, they can
I'm
control them.
suddenly regretting this
Well,
question because
now
I'm going to
we're-
go down rabbit holes that
Now
I
we
can't
know where
come
we're
out
going
of.
with season 2 is conspiracy theories.
I won't participate.
I will. I so will. Lisa, what's your conspiracy theory?
You're gonna hate this answer.
I'm gonna love it.
No, I don't have one. I just don't lean into.
You don't have a heart for hurting animals, and now
Conspiracies.
you don't have a heart for conspiracy.
Yeah, I just don't feed into it, right? Timmy Davis would probably like me to talk about the dinosaurs in Walkerton. He brought that up at lunch one time. He's
What?
probably going to be actually mad that I brought it up, but
Timmy, I can't wait to hear this at lunch.
he has some
Just
conspiracy
bleep Timmy's
theories
name.
around that, and we're like, Timmy.
What about the dinosaurs in Walkerton?
Yeah, there's some. Apparently, there was some bones found, a whole set, and then before they got to the museum, they disappeared.
No.
So they
Scandalous.
couldn't confirm it.
They were aliens.
Yeah, so just no. I'm actually just like a no on conspiracy
What do you think
theories.
is in Area 51?
Nothing.
Cool. Hey,
Lore. I think it's full of lore.
That is
so
disappointing.
I could not ask this question without asking our friends in the back. And Matt Florian,
Matt
who
Florian.
also
Matt,
helps
that-
us with production,
special
has a
guest
really
today.
fun one. So Scotty and or Matt. Okay, we're going to start with Matt. So this is not Matt. Go ahead, Matt. I can't hear you.
Thank you for letting me out of the cave.
Anytime.
My conspiracy theory, such as it is that part of the reason we have such processed food in this country, it's artificial sweeteners that God did not create, is because of corn farmers. And I know a bunch of corn farmers, and they're great guys and great gals. But high fructose corn syrup is in everything.
It is.
There's a reason that, like, our Latin American brothers and sisters are sometimes a lot happier because they've got Coca-Cola with real sugar in it. Thank you for coming to my Theodore narrative.
Amen.
I cannot wait to have episode like season 2, and then we talk about just that one. I can't wait. Scotty,
He's
what is your
married
theory?
into a family of farmers, too. They're
makes
going
me
to
so happy.
disown you, Matt.
I don't actually have one.
Good job,
I
Scott.
would say, like, I could make one up. Like,
Yeah, do it.
mirrors are like,
Wait.
when you look at a mirror,
Make
you're
it up.
actually looking at another
Making up a
universe,
conspiracy
another
theory.
dimension. Yeah,
Lots of scary movies.
just saying.
Use that angle. Yeah.
Okay.
What's yours?
Yeah, your
this
turn.
was way
Lay
too
it out.
early for
Your
me. Like 12 o'clock, Kari wrote this, and 8 o'clock, Kari is regarding it. That Pepsi had this weird thing. So Mountain Dew has these different flavored names come out, and then shortly thereafter, there's some sort of like historical thing that happens in American history. So like
Give me
Code
Baja
Red.
Blast.
Listen, I don't know what that one is, but like Code Red was connected to like 9/11, and then there's all these like they were like naming them and then going back and forth within so many months, and I was like, what is happening in this? I shouldn't have been like watching conspiracy theory things while I was writing. That is my bad. So sorry for all of us at home, but I learned a lot about my friends here.
Wild theory connects new Mountain Dew flavor to catastrophic events.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's definitely something that I don't know a lot about because it's a conspiracy theory, but it was really interesting to hear how other people think about different events and different things, kind of like what we're going to talk about today, because we're spinning how we are thinking through things, right? So this episode is focused on the power of love and the skill of positive intent. And at the beginning of the chapter, it said this really beautiful quote, and I'm going to read it because I didn't want to butcher it. So Dr. Bailey says, "We must see children differently in order for them to behave differently. We have a choice to see the best or the worst in each other. The power of love asks us to see the best in each other." It allows us to see the light within every person at any time. Seeing the spark of beauty in each person does not excuse behavior or eliminate consequences. It allows us to hold hope for the hopeless, safety for the fearful, and encouragement for the discouraged. And I just really, really loved that. So when we're talking about the power of love, it is fostering the development for compassion. So last episode we talked about empathy, and now we're working on some compassion.
She skipped your overview.
What?
That's cool.
Is it? Did I do that? Oh, I
It's
did.
okay,
I got
keep going.
too excited. So
It's okay,
I'll
keep
finish up
going.
in this minute, and then we're going to look at that. I got excited, guys.
No, we're good.
It's totally fine.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. So we're viewing the world through the lens of interdependence, meaning we need each other, like when I need Ernesto to help me review from last time, but then also interconnection. So before we move on, Ernesto, can you give us episode 8's?
Yeah, sure. So
you.
for episode 8, we spoke about empathy and the power of acceptance. And some of the key points we shared were that all conflict starts with the upset. In turn, we try to solve the conflict, but often ignore the upset part. Until we're able to manage emotional upset, we'll never truly be able to resolve the conflict. The skill of empathy and the power of acceptance teach us that the moment is as it is, and that true empathy demands we listen to children's feelings and thoughts without the need to change them. We spoke about the DNA process, describing what you see, naming the feeling, acknowledging the desire. For example, your face is going like this. You seem angry. You wanted to be in charge of the craft supplies. The important piece there being we're acknowledging students' feelings, not just pushing them off to the side. And then lastly, empathy does not change the limits on behavior. Rather, it helps children to become better able to accept the limits that we set.
That connects directly to that quote Kari just said. It doesn't excuse behavior or eliminate the consequences. It just gives a different lens.
Yeah, so really seeing kids for being good, and that we are good people, and like we would hope, on my worst days that people know that is not always who I am, so thinking about it in like terms of children and in the classrooms. So when I'm going to get back on track, and then I have a question in a second. So choosing to see others in the best light defines both them and us in the highest possible way. We choose to give others grace and space, helping them rather than judging them and assuming that those things were about us. The power of love requires us to pause when we feel triggered. When conflict arises, we remain calm, take a deep breath, and we are intentionally, so we have to stop ourselves. We're intentionally suspending judgment, so thinking about they should be or they shouldn't be doing things, and those assumptions and their intentions. Last episode, we talked about a cognitive distortion, and today I've got a different one. This one's mind reading, so interpreting the thoughts of others without evidence. Another, right, conspiracy. That's where we were headed. So thinking about, I
see your connection now.
So I can't assume Mrs. Doyle's, even if she's talking with me and I'm like, man, she thinks I'm stupid. That's not how I believe you feel, but as an example, unless I'm physically asking, what are your intentions behind these things, I'm never gonna know. And so we often spend so much time assuming things about what others are thinking and doing, and thinking it has so much to do with us, and really, that's not the case at all. So can anybody think of a time or give an example when you judged another person's motives and responded in a way that was way off base? I do it a lot.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time. I mean, I could give
Such helpful
examples.
feedback.
Like,
That's what I asked for.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my marriage is probably the easiest place to be I'm frustrated if he's not doing something, and I'm thinking that it's a personal, he doesn't want to do this, or he doesn't want to spend time or do whatever, but really he's I've got a to-do list X, Y, and Z. I'm the only person that's responsible for this. It has nothing to do with you, right? Mm-hmm. Type of stuff. We, struggle to communicate sometimes in that way. And then he's like, why do you assume I feel a certain way? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I just do that.
I feel that. What about Mrs. Doyle? Do you ever see that in kindergarten? I see it a lot in kids assuming things about each other, and it can be
Yeah.
really hard to help them walk through that.
Well, I think I've noticed as a teacher, you've got a million tabs open, and you are trying to get, this is my objective, this is what we need to do, and you have a classroom full of bodies that are all doing something different. And there's so many times where I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, well, I don't know what any of these kids are thinking right now, so like, it's fine. It's all fine. But yeah, early on when I first started teaching, you know, somebody to get up, excuse me, if they got up to go do something, I'm like, they don't care about their education. They don't, it was easier to do. It's, I don't always correctly, you know what I mean? I still sometimes make the snap judgment or whatever. But yeah, with kids in the classroom, it's very easy to say, oh, you know, this kid, instead of, he actually has a stomach virus and he needs to
gotta
run
go
to the bathroom.
potty.
He's got to use it. You
Got the
know,
pee
he just
poops.
wants to ignore my lesson because we're doing fractions, and fractions are terrible. So
And it might make his belly hurt, but we don't know
Yeah.
because we're assuming.
Yeah, there's a little snippet in the chapter where she talked about a kindergarten teacher who puts out the tub of like colored bears, and you know
Mark.
the teacher is thinking, you know, they're math manipulatives. The child is seeing it as toys, and there's like some conflict back and forth on trying to get the materials back, and they just kind of use that as an example of the teacher's assuming, right? They're thinking negatively about this child's intent. The child isn't viewing it at all that way, and just emphasizing that point that we're not mind readers, right? The one line that said, "We are not, in fact, mind readers. We make up what we believe others are thinking and their intentions." But then it went on and said, "If we get to make it up in our brains, why not make it positive?" Right? 'Cause
Right.
it just keeps you in the better state instead of thinking negatively and putting yourself in the negative state.
Absolutely, it does. And so when we don't choose to use that positive intent and we're not using that power of love, we end up in power struggles. A lot. So when we see disrespect rather than seeing them as that positive, we shut them down in our response from our emotional brain, and we are entering into a power struggle. They become triggered, and we get focused on finding fault and making them like learn their lesson. So like, you're being disrespectful, you need to be respectful, rather than seeing what's actually going on. And the focus is on punishment. So kids have two options then, right? They can either accept that they're bad, or they have to defend their self-worth and get into a power struggle. I have found like I'm pretty good with power struggles in school, but man, when I go home and my 5-year-old wants something, that is a totally different ballgame. So how do you guys avoid power struggles, or like how do you guys see that playing out at home, at school? I was gonna say, Stella.
I mean, I think it's probably fair to say 80% of the time when you're seeing a student who's, you know, had some misbehaviors, it's, I'm just bad, right? And it's been so ingrained in them, like that's just their default and that's all they know.
Yeah.
And so it creates a challenge for the adults, whether that's at school or, you know, hopefully not at home, right? Because hopefully they're not feeling that where they're at during the day. But yeah, it's challenging because then you have to like reset and remind them, no, you made a bad choice. It's the behavior that we aren't appreciating
you.
right now.
We
It's
can
not who
fix-
you are, it's the behavior.
Yeah.
I have a very traumatic story that goes along with this really well.
Please.
Yeah.
So it was 4th grade, and I was a student at LaVille Elementary, and I had a big purple plastic lunchbox. You know the story, don't you?
I'm waiting for it.
Okay.
So, refresh my memory.
But we were waiting.
There's a lot of purple in your life back then.
There was. I
Yeah.
loved a good purple.
I hope they're still purple.
Who
in your life.
doesn't
No,
love purple?
it's all Lancer blue.
That's right.
Anyway,
Yeah, it is.
I have this lunchbox, and we had tables and chairs back then, and we were dismissed by rows. And the microphone is attached to a cord back then because there's no other way. And the principal would stand there and dismiss us. And so I've got my arm over the chair, and I'm thunking my lunchbox on the metal, and it's going thunk, just over and over. And as an adult now, I see this as, oh my gosh, if she pounds that lunchbox
time.
one more time. But I'm sitting there thunking it, and I'm looking at my friends, and all of a sudden their face is just pale. And I'm like, what the? And all of a sudden my lunchbox is being lifted away, and I turn, and the principal has come and just taken my lunchbox. Didn't yell, nothing like that, but he just takes my lunchbox away from me. Immediate fear, terror. Oh my my gosh, so I'm like, I gotta get my lunchbox back. How am I gonna eat tomorrow? Because I was always
Yeah.
worried about that,
It's a logical concern.
that was important.
Fourth grade.
It still is.
I thought you were gonna say because I'm scared of my mom because Jean.
Gino.
Gene, yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, I went up to him and I took a friend because I was so scared. And, she was like, can she have her lunchbox? I don't know. Can she, talk or whatever? And I mean, yeah. So, which he was a great guy, cool. But I always try to remember that story because I remember I was not wanting to annoy anyone. I was literally just waiting to go to recess. And so I have found myself, I try to remember just, hey, do you mind stop doing that, please? And it's so much nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to remember that a lot because that's kind of like, that's how you're making this kid feel because you felt that.
Well, and you've held on to it. Like you can still
I know,
feel,
I
you can
still-
still feel the feeling of him taking it out of your hand and
Yeah.
like the look on your friends'
Yeah.
faces. The world of toddlers, I feel like, is just like murky when it comes to power struggles, right? Because they're not actually
line.
super rational. And so just last night we're at my parents' and it's the second night in a row Stella refuses to eat like her dinner, okay, just all out. It was a cheeseburger and there were tater tots, like, and she was like, nope, not doing it. And so it just becomes like, okay, well then, like, she doesn't have a concept of the consequence later then of like, okay, well then tonight there's no popcorn. Do you know what I mean? Like you can choose not to eat, but then we're not making microwavable popcorn before bed tonight. So then she doesn't eat, kind of throws a fit, whatever. We go home and she's like, can I have popcorn and candy tonight? And I was like, you absolutely may not because you didn't eat your dinner 2 times in a row. And like, I'm not actually like, I don't tend to force her to eat, right? If she's not going to eat, she's not going to eat regardless. And that drives my parents crazy, which is like definitely a generational thing. My mom's like, you will finish your plate. You will not get up from the table. And I'm like, well, if she's not going to eat, she's not going to eat. So then a total tantrum ensues in my kitchen with like balled up fists, stomping feet, crying, screaming, why won't I let her have some gummy bears and some popcorn? And she didn't. We did settle on a healthier snack option because I knew at that point she was probably hungry.
She's hangry.
Yeah, but also, like, you were offered, you chose not to. There are consequences. Like, I'm not necessarily on board with, like, a short order kitchen type of situation of, like, I'm going to cook whenever you want something, but also, you're going to eat something healthy, not garbage. So, seeing the positive intent behind, like, a 3-year-old raging in your kitchen about some gummy bears, at the end of the day, after working all day, takes every fiber of my being to not be like, I can't look at you.
What we get a lot is Sophie saying, "You're making me sad." It's like, well,
You're choosing.
Yeah.
your emotions are in your control. That's your choice.
How can
Right.
we
I can't
help
control
you?
your emotions.
Right. But that it is
But,
like a
but
really
where's the positive intent in that
complex.
comment, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And food especially, like this power struggle with food in toddlers is ridiculous.
Did your
Absolutely
boys
ridiculous.
ever like go through picky eating stage?
Oh, still.
Still picky eaters?
We have one that's really picky.
We have one.
Okay,
That's
so
all
like
right.
how do you manage then? Are you making him
Please
something
help us.
separate? Are you like, this is what I'm making, you're not eating, you can make yourself something else?
Because they are bigger.
If we have other options, he may choose that. I think Jill and I are pretty consistent with how we're gonna parent the kids, and so in that regard, in that situation, oftentimes it's like, well, this is when we're eating now as a family. These are your options, or if there are multiple options, choose one, or
You're
the
hungry.
consequences, you could be hungry later. And same regard, I think, he's not that small anymore, so he has
Yeah.
more of a
He probably also knows his
cognitive
hunger.
disposition
Yes.
to understand, I'm going to have a little something at least right now.
As they've gotten older, it has gotten easier. The other night, it's a busy season for everybody, and I said you need a protein and a vegetable before 7 o'clock. And other than that, like if you want to add some chips, I don't care, but you need a protein, and they know what that is, and they know what that looks like because we've talked. When they were younger, we had to be a lot more intentional and specific, but now,
I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing is communicating what the potential consequence could be,
Yeah.
so that they are thinking, because they're not thinking ahead. They have no understanding of what that future may hold.
That foresight.
Yeah.
Or-
And so just helping them kind of see that, and
Yeah.
then that kind of helps them, I think, hopefully later in life to be thinking about their options and choices.
Yeah.
they make.
Yeah, I mean, I've been more conscious on the choices thing, right? Like giving 2 positive choices this morning. I'm doing Stella's hair, also a point of contention. For those of you with just boys, bless.
That's lovely.
So I'm trying to put her
Her
hair,
hair,
in
yes.
a ponytail, and she hates it, right? Hates it. And I was
I'm the
like,
worst at it.
do you want a braid or do you want a pony? Do you guys know what she said? Neither. I want neither. I don't want you to do my hair. I'm like, okay, I will choose for you. Pony it is. And so, sometimes it feels like my day with my children is just power struggle, power struggle, power struggle, power struggle.
Well, I also see it from Jill's perspective when she comes home. She's
Mm-hmm.
fatigued. I think you talk about decision fatigue, but I think there's also, lack of better terms, parent fatigue, because that also takes place. If you're teaching, you're also parenting, you're also mentoring, you're also coaching. So there's the coaching fatigue that goes with that, and so by the end of the day, you're probably done.
Yeah.
You've tapped
These
out.
poor educators' children, right? Like, they're
Yes.
going to be all right, but
They're gonna be
they might
okay.
be getting
I
the
don't know,
short
is
end
that
of the
what you
stick
feel
now.
at times or no?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, as the kids have gotten older, it's so much easier because
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
they don't need, they come home and they want to go shoot baskets. They want to go out and swing and read and mow. And I'm like, yeah, great, go mow. This is
Have the
amazing.
best time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like
Absolutely.
cling to you and like touch
Yeah,
your
it
face
gets better.
like this. And I'm like, oh,
So what I'm saying is it gets better.
it gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Light at the
we've
end
got
of
the
the tunnel.
17-year-old and the 5-year-old for comparison, and so he'll come home every day and make food, and he's self-sufficient.
Yep.
Bless.
Yeah, don't have to drive him anywhere anymore either because he's got a car.
The
So
light is at the
it
end.
does get easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I have
that's cool.
heard, like, even especially this year, kindergartners saying, I am bad. Like, and they're almost saying that to like when they are doing those things. And so in this chapter, it talked about the power of love, which is the thing that the adults do. We're choosing to see people in the best light possible. And then Dr. Becky went to the brain and talking about how the brain works, and then going to the skill of positive intent. So at this point, like talking about the brain, it might feel like a weird switch, but there's all these really cool connections. So Dr. Martinez has this really cool brain in his office, and I thought it'd be a really cool thank you. Thank you for just opening my brain. So you're getting the real me at 8:30 in the morning. In the brain, we have the amygdala, and it is constantly scanning our surroundings for potential danger, and it serves as a gatekeeper. So either you're going to the survival state because something is dangerous, and it said, oop, that was scary, we don't like that, I'm not safe, or it says, nope, this thing is okay, and we're going to be able to go to the emotional and executive state. It's in charge of tagging negative emotional memories for the future, saying, that was not fun, that hurt me last time, I don't want to do that again. The quality of our relationships with our students and our children will either help keep them calm and keep their amygdala calm, resulting in a healthy threat perception. And so that releases oxytocin in the brain. That's that bonding chemical, like when you have a baby and that thing. That was distracting. Because you talk a lot about oxytocin. You talked about it a few different times. Just that bonding chemical, especially when they're babies, but it allows them to feel safe and trusted. And then in unhealthy relationships, that is an increased sense of fear, resulting in a sense of distrust and lacking safety. So rather than releasing those feel-good emotions of I feel safe, it's releasing cortisol. And we remain guarded and ready for attack. I see so many kids in the hallways, as well as like my own kiddos, where they go into fight, flight, and freeze. And then, so that is that hormone. So prolonged cortisol can actually kill brain cells, damage the hippocampus, which is important for like storing your memories, and that is all like right in the middle. I mean, I'm gonna figure out how to help you with this out, Scotty, with all this stuff. But it also like causes, I was doing some Googling, and like it causes inflammation, and it causes immune health, and a lot of struggles. And so, I don't know, when we have cortisol flux, like, you know, you're only supposed to have a little bit. It's supposed to be there for like if there's a bear in the room. It's not supposed to be there all day, every day. And so we're seeing kids in these really heightened senses. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on cortisol in the body, Dr. Doyle. You can if you want, or if you don't, you do you.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the amygdala, that's the primal brain. So, we're here because of all the generations before us survived. And so that's the main survival brain, the primal brain. And so it's always on the alert. And so when it's always heightened all the time, it does send those neurochemicals throughout the body to be heightened. And it can be a certain situation where some people are, you see those, even in adults, you see some like, wow, this person had a huge weight gain over the last 2 years. What in the world's going on? Well, it may not have been diet. Could have been all the stress, all the cortisol, the inflammation that's now keeping all that, because what do we need to do? Survive. So we need fat deposits. You need all that, adipose tissue to help fuel yourself through this haul that you're going through that's a high stress situation.
Absolutely.
So as far as that goes, I mean, yeah, I can only imagine some of these kids when the school may actually be the only reprieve, but that oftentimes is a carryover of that heightened anxiety, that heightened stress from home life. And so they can't disconnect.
You can't turn it off.
They can't turn it off purposefully.
Yeah.
Unless there's some training you could do.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, but it's hard to teach a 6-year-old how to downregulate their nervous system.
And so that's what we're doing. So we're not just teaching math and science and reading, but we're teaching kids how to calm their bodies and how to do that. And it's a lot. And so talking about when we're not just teaching, but we're coaching and we're parenting, we're doing all these things. We're trying to help these humans grow, and it's a lot when they have all of this stress. And then the kids with the high stress, they're not the ones sitting nicely in their chair and ready. And some of them are ready to learn and they just want to learn. Some of them are running circles because they think their brain is saying there's something fun and dangerous in the room, and they're running in circles. And so how we respond to them really, really matters. So
I think that connects to just downloading calm, right? Last night while we were tantruming about candy, I just sat on the floor and she sat in my lap, and I just, I just held her, right? And I hugged her. And we can't actually do that to 6-year-olds here at school, right? But I'm sitting on my kitchen floor with my 3-year-old, and I'm taking deep breaths because I know that if I'm modeling this for her and if she can feel my calm, we're going to get through this quicker. If I yell at her and tell her to move on, or if she also doesn't like it if I just walk away. She's not a fan of that. She takes that as a personal attack.
She follow you?
her safe person left.
Yes, and continue screaming. But in my mind, as we're working through this, I was like, all right, Lisa, download the calm, because that's what she needs right now. We're going to be able to move through this quicker. I gave her the option, do you want to eat your pirate's booty in the kitchen or in the living room, right? And then we were able to move on because I gave her a positive choice, and she took that, and she didn't ask for candy again. But the intentionality behind that, and you guys, we're educated, and we're sitting here having these conversations and have the know-how and the education behind child development and all of these things. So I'm urging parents to listen to this, because I can't imagine if I didn't have this information and I was going into parenting, blind and not equipped with the knowledge, how hard and how challenging it would be, not for me as a parent, but also especially for my child, if I didn't have these skills and the ability to intentionally be this person. And I'm not perfect. None of us are. And there are still times where I'm go sit down, get out of my face.
Go see your dad.
I need a break. I see that.
And
I say that one a lot.
Yeah, dad's typically outside, so I'm opening the door and shooing a screaming toddler outside, right?
Or I walk away thinking Dr. Becky would not have done that.
No. But also, and earlier you talked about demanding respect or just being respectful, and I don't think that that's innately bad, right? Because as we're laying in bed last night, winding down, we read our books and we're just talking about the day, I'm saying we have to keep a respectful tone to people. Sometimes the issue is not, what you want or what you're trying to do. It's the tone you're saying that to me in, or it's the tone. And we had a conversation about tone yesterday, but when you're demanding something and you're aggressive and you're not saying please and thank you, the people around you don't necessarily
feel hurt.
Yeah, and they don't want to help you. So I do think that there's a place for us to teach our kids the appropriate way to access the things that they want. And there is an underlying respect factor of I'm treating you with respect, right? And I'm talking to you this way, so I do expect that back. But she's 3 and she's not going to do that all the time. But when she was calm and ready for bed and we're processing and reflecting, I did have that conversation with her of like, you did get in trouble today at dinner and it was hard. It was a hard evening and you didn't get to have candy because of XYZ, and there are consequences to your actions. You cannot be rude and unkind to people because you want gummy bears.
Very similar to like yesterday when we did when we did episode 8, we talked about the hamster, right? And the hamster died. And we don't need to like talk about why the hamster died then right away. Like we can be sad
If
with
it was
them.
negligence was the point.
Yes, and then go back and
the
talk
child had
later.
failed to feed
Sometimes
the
in
hamster.
a situation like that, a parent might try to punish or blame the child for the hamster's demise.
Of course it died. You haven't watered it in 3 days.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Oh, you and Zach Tyler.
Oh no,
He quoted that exact same line.
I love it.
We did go
Yeah.
to school together.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
I didn't know that.
Was he in your wedding?
He was.
He was.
He's our best man.
Yes. The best man. Did he wear shorts? Did you make him wear pants?
wore pants.
Thank
Wore pants.
goodness.
And he'll tell you the sweat was running down his
would,
legs because
too.
it was July. It was July
I think
9th.
everyone had sweat running down there.
I didn't.
Panted leg.
That was the one day I never sweat. Sweat free that day.
Sweat free that.
It actually, my sister, fun fact, got married in May years earlier, and her wedding was so hot and humid.
Yeah.
And we got married in our church, and it still does not have air conditioning. And we got married July 9th, and it was not humid. It was actually a really lovely day.
the best.
Andrew
day.
had a different experience. He's like, no, you
It's like,
sweat
it
through
was
the
I was in
whole thing.
black.
Yeah.
The sun
Slept
was
through
kind
the
of
whole
beating down on me. It's a
Minor
little bit
details.
different.
Minor.
The sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
That's
It was the
right.
best day of his life.
He's not arguing.
No,
That's a
I'm
yes.
just like having my brain is kind of exploding with the thought of like Zach Tyler, and then like I just
Yeah, the connection.
Zach Tyler broke into my house one time.
Call the
Tyler.
police.
Let's continue.
We
Let's
were.
What a
Patrick?
criminal.
Andrew and I were on. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry
Too
about
excited.
continuing.
This is a lot.
I talk with my hands.
me too.
So I'll do this. Zach Tyler broke into our house. Andrew and I were. We went to like.
Don't say what you were doing.
No. Like we were like running. No, our dates were running errands. Oh, Dad needs a bag of feed. A bag of grass seed.
In fact, Jill loathed our mowing dates. She would help us mow because we had, Mom and Dad had several acres. They would
I didn't
mow.
loathe them until you told me I was doing it wrong.
Oh,
And you.
There, again, I had to
learned that
coach her.
lesson.
I had to coach her.
we
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
control or change
Or maybe
our spouse.
Jill
Anyways,
coached.
Anyways, we were doing errands and we were going to meet up with everybody, and then because it was a big group of us that hung out, and so my parents were gone. Andrew and I came into the house. Zach had crawled up. I had this old, what was it? A TV antenna.
TV antenna tower.
That you could climb. It was
Yeah,
cool.
my
And
parents
it went,
still have one.
Yeah, I went right up along the house to my bedroom window. So
Yeah.
he climbed up that, got into my bedroom, went through the house, went downstairs, and then sat in the rocking chair in the dark for like an hour
And waited.
and waited.
What a weirdo.
Yeah.
Huh.
So then when Andrew and I were
No.
Can you
coming
help
in,
with that? Can you help psychoanalyze that sometime? Maybe off podcast.
Kari won't even talk to Zach. She couldn't lead the episode that Zach was on because she's like, I cannot.
I
So-
can't read his sarcasm. He's so good at
he's
it.
full of positive intent.
There's the I said a positive.
How do you know it's
ZT.
sarcasm?
If you can't read it, oh, that's a very
That's the
valid
problem.
point.
I think
That's
it-
my problem.
He's
Is
got it
that
so
I
good
can't
at
tell,
it.
and I'm like, I don't know if you're serious or not, and I have to walk away. Or
I love
he can
it.
laugh at me, and it is what it is. I think we have a decent working relationship,
You
and it's
do.
just so fun. And he likes to watch me squirm. So anyway, I loved this quote, and then we're going to talk about, here, you hold this because it's distracting me. So there is no safety in a mind that is preoccupied with the past. And don't throw it.
He told me to.
I can hear Scott laughing through my headphones and projecting into the future. So there is no safety in a mind that is preoccupied with the past and projecting into the future. Safety can only be found in the present. And I thought it was really cool that she's talking about safety being found in the present, but also when we are truly loving someone, that also looks like we are present. We're not thinking of all the things we're in and we're zoned in with them. So integrating the right and left hemispheres of the brain.
Oh, we
thought
still
you were done
needed
with
it.
I thought you were done with it. I was just trying to clear some space.
Bad
You're
advice.
totally fine. I have positive intent. You didn't mean to, and I recognize that in you. So in the left hemisphere, so on the one side, I really love talking about left and right brain stuff because it can be really interesting, and I learned a lot here. So the left focuses on the familiar, so patterns, and it's like very math focused. It's storytelling, it's logical, it's taking in the words, so verbal processing and those positive emotions, and it's thinking, I will stay focused. It's black and white. But then you've got the right side of the brain, and that's reading into gestures and tone like you were just talking about. Reading nonverbal cues. So with Zach Tyler, right, he can say something and I'm picking up the words, but I'm like, but
Your body doesn't
but
match
your
your
tone
words.
and your words. So I'm always like, Zach. And it's picking up more on the negative and more difficult emotions. I don't like using the word negative emotions because I think all emotions are valid. So the ones that are harder aren't as fun to feel. They are more artsy, and people who are more right-brained are more expressive. I thought this was fun. It was the seat of impulse control. It's more densely connected to the limbic system, which can hold the amygdala and the hippocampus. But also I'm like, but those people tend to be like the more emotional and like more moving around. So I'm like, how does that work? And then they tend to be more holistic, and it's more of the big picture side of the brain. But the goal is to integrate both of them by using both sides of the brain. So balance is key. If we lean too far to the left, we become rigid. We have a need, or like we can pretend, that we can control others, and unwillingness to cooperate and negotiate. If we're too far right-brained, we're losing control with our impulse control, and we have big emotions. So
I think I know the answer to this, but which side do you lean towards more?
I'm very right-brained. I also really
What
hate
about
math.
you?
He is so lefty.
Yeah.
It's a big old left brain.
Yeah. I'm a
Either one of you
lefty.
guys, right or left?
Left brain.
Left.
And I'm right. So we're a great pair.
So when you're integrated, you just flow so well.
We do.
Sure do.
We love that. Where are
What
you
about
at?
you? Yeah.
Oh, I'm more right than left.
But
My
you also
husband
really
is
love
very
data.
left. So yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very right. Like art and like the people that like play instruments tend to be more on that side, and like art versus like chess and math. And so like really making sure that we're like doing play and like so I'm going to talk about that. So there's 4 things that we can do to be successful like with our kids. You can utilize these at home. We try to do some of these things at school. Modeling our personal right hemisphere, so the self-regulation skills for kids. Dr. Becky said in the research on self-regulation, it showed that we as adults, the way we treat each other around children, so while they're watching us, is actually more powerful for their development and how they are going to model self-regulation more than how we're treating the kids. And I was like, that's so fascinating. And like, what a plug for like treating your spouse and your partner well, right? And how we talk to them, making sure we're using that power of love and the skill of intent, because they are picking up on what we're doing and how we're treating each other. So modeling what we want to see and not just talking it out.
And doesn't that make sense for like a lot of generational things of like like if your parents are divorced, and what your vision of what a relationship and a marriage should look like then. And this is challenging in my own marriage. Like my husband's parents divorced when he was very young, and my parents are still married. So like our upbringing and what has been modeled for us is very different. So then if you were to sit down separately and say like, what probably earlier before we got married, like what do you think your marriage would look like, or what do you think your future would look like? Like he never wanted to get married even, you know what I mean? Like that was just, he was,
You got to catch. What are you talking
he was, tell me about it. I'm just kidding. He actually told me this morning he wasn't listening because he didn't want to listen to me talk about him. So shout out because
Okay.
he's not listening. But that affected him so much. It didn't ever come to the surface until I was like, I want to get married. If you don't want to get married, like if that's not the way you see your future, then we should.
Peace out.
He married me, right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so that's just really interesting, but actually makes perfect sense.
And we see it modeled in kids because so often how they're treating each other and how they're regulating themselves, I see it in hallways all day long. And I know you see it in the classrooms, and like we see it everywhere, right? And so it's really interesting to like remind ourselves that how we're treating each other. Research
Well,
is showing is more important.
That was one of my goals of my comment from previous, was that, you know, they're taking that stuff from home life and they're bringing it to school. That's that stress that's continuing to follow them through.
Absolutely.
Where most of us aren't acting like they are acting at home while they're in the school. So it's a huge conundrum for them. They're like, well, wait a second.
Their world doesn't match
This is
up.
not, this is like a bizarro world for them in most cases. When,
Right.
For some of them, you know.
And some of them
They
are
default to what they know and what they're comfortable with.
what they're
'cause
seeing.
That's what they've
Well,
always experienced.
How many times have we like seen a student who is struggling with behavior and then maybe like saw something or heard something from their world, whether it was like a phone call or like a video chat or something, and we're like, oh, like that's where that language comes from, or like that's where they've heard something like that before, because oftentimes we're like, who taught you that, kind of thing. But then we get kind of a glimpse into what maybe they're experiencing outside of our building, and we're like, okay.
Because, you know, we don't know if they're experiencing violence at home. We don't know if they're experiencing yelling and screaming. And if that is how they see their families meeting their needs and how they're regulating their emotions, unless we teach them different, they're not going to know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not to say too, I should say this just for our like
Do it.
parent listeners, like that's not to say that every struggling kid that's struggling behaviorally is coming from a
absolutely not.
home that is dysregulated, like full of yelling and full of punishment. That is
Absolutely.
definitely not the case. So, but oftentimes
That's important.
Yeah. Oftentimes we see a correlation, but that is not always. There are very loving homes with like great parents whose kids still struggle behaviorally, right?
Yeah, I mean, thinking about like my son Aiden, who I love him so much. Like, we're not yelling, we don't have those things at home, but that boy will chase me down Michigan Street because he is so anxious and I have left him, and he thinks I'm never coming back. I have never left him for more than like a day. So, like, there are things happening, but it is important that we, again, aren't reading into other people's intentions, but also knowing, like, that things happen and seeing them in that positive light is important. So the second thing we can be doing, parent-wise, or what we do in school, is incorporating personal storytelling, so encouraging kids to tell their stories. So when you're telling stories, you are using words, you're using that left side of the brain, but also we're telling story with emotion. So she actually encouraged us to like tell stories, even if they're upsetting, because I think that's important that kids process a whole story when they're talking. And when they're doing that, they're able to work through it, and so they're using a different side of their brain. And I loved that she said, this chapter says that it is not just a counselor's role and a parent's role. We should be doing this in the classrooms, and we should be doing this with others. And I thought that was so cool, normalizing emotions and supporting and coaching them.
We
How
talked
often?
about that a lot yesterday too.
So wasn't that funny? I had read through the chapter and I was like, man, there's so many connections.
As we get further along, it's just it's all
It's
kind
all
of
connected.
circle, full circle, and it's repeating, and it's all connecting. So
Because
it's nice.
we don't want to like rush through emotions, and we don't want to rush through the things that are hard. So yeah, watch the last episode if you did not, because there's a lot of cool talk about that. And then the value of play in the arts. So the right hemisphere is using art and emotion, feelings, and can be something that we do in everyday play. Play is so important, especially for younger kids and adults. I think everyone needs play.
Absolutely.
So spending time doing, she specifically named these 3 types of play, which are critical for self-regulation. These are away from electronics. Just wanted to communicate that you can't do these types of play with a phone or an iPad in your hand. So the one I struggle with, rough and tumble play. This is things like chasing and wrestling and play fighting, tickling, tumbling, spinning, games like tag. It's a way for children to explore their physical skills, develop social boundaries, and learn about their bodies in a fun and safe environment. My brain is always going, you're going to get hurt, we're going to the hospital.
No, it needs to happen.
But it needs to happen.
needs
And you
to
and I
happen.
have talked about that several times where you're like, this is so good for them, and you're so right. And so that's like a personal thing that I have to take a step back. So I'm like, Steven, you go wrestle those
Did
boys.
your parents like wrestle rough and tumble with you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Siblings?
No.
You were never chased around the house with a machete?
That is a different story.
Oh, whoops.
And I know Justin is not watching, so. It's not a machete. So.
I read something on Instagram not too long ago, and it's like, some of you were never chased around the house with a knife by an older sibling,
Exactly.
and it
It
shows.
shows.
What about
It
a younger
shows.
sibling?
We're best
yeah.
friends now.
Yeah, 100%.
We just talked about it last night.
I'm
Were
the
you
baby
sisters?
of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sisters are different. I'm a baby of 5 girls, and we did terrible,
Just
awful things to each
them.
other.
Yep.
And they're my best friends. I love them very much. Love you guys.
So that rough and tumble play, so important for a lot of different reasons. And then dramatic play. So this is things that I do kind of well, like dress up and playing with dolls and playing house and those things. Not so much in that physical sense, but being able to storytell and play. And then interactive face-to-face play. So thinking things like patty cake and I love you rituals. But also I was thinking like, man, in middle school, we would sit in a big old circle. I have no idea what it's called, but we would like have our hands and do things and like be like connecting with each other. And I was like, man, we should bring that back on a rainy day. The boys are gonna look at me and be like, but the girls, I think we could totally get into it.
There's a lot of evidence regarding the neural connections between the 2 hemispheres of the brain with cross-body movement.
Yes.
So, EMDR is
midline.
one treatment strategy that counselors will use for developing that connection.
So we did this a lot when I was in, like before we would set up a meeting, we would cross the body. So if you wanted to practice this, it's really fun. So you do this with this hand and this, and then you flip flap. And you get better as you go. It's really hard to.
Even simple like crossing chest, tapping, or even
butterfly.
legs. Or
I do that in
And
class
this is
a lot
calming.
at the beginning of the school year when I'm teaching, because my kindergartners have a 5-minute attention span. But I'll be like, okay, now we're going to do this. Or
Butterfly hugs.
we erase mistakes, and we have 2 erasers, and we have to erase like this.
So smart.
And so when you look at play, physical play or wrestling, what are you doing? You're doing those diagonal patterns all the time.
So cool to think about. Man, now I want to talk about all of that. So maybe like season 2, right? Like talking about play and what that looks like, and we'll have to bring you back because that would be really cool to talk about.
Yeah, well, and Dr. Doyle, we should have you come in and take a look at our minds in motion.
Yeah,
and,
please.
Like, I mean, Courtney
be fun,
Fox does a great job with it, and I know like all of that stuff is. What I know about that is from learning from her and how she supports our students that receive occupational therapy at school. But that whole setup, the Minds in Motion setup, is all geared for all of that.
And when Kari mentioned balance, between the hemispheres, well, actually, like physical
Walking a
balance
beam.
drives a lot of those neural connections between the 2 hemispheres. So,
So cool.
balance activities and what does play do? You're going to fall sometimes, and so the idea is to help control that.
The climbing
And getting back up.
objects, jumping off of them. all
Yeah,
of
let
that.
them be dangerous.
Yeah.
And
Right. My 3-year-old loves to like climb the couches and like jump off of things, right? And like
Yeah.
she's cringing, and like even my parents too. Another generational thing. My mom's like, we don't stand on the couch,
Yeah.
and I'm like, hey, we stand on the
no,
couch.
my kids do not climb on
Well,
the
and
couch.
that's the thing. Like there's a place for it. So it's either in the basement or outside. You go
Yeah.
outside and do
We had a
these things.
stool.
And
They had a stool and like a tunnel, and so if it was a bad day, they could play rough on those items.
Yeah.
But you're not climbing on the couch and jumping off of it because that's a piece of furniture that we have to take care of and it has
Yeah.
to last us a long time. So again, I'm setting those parameters. Yeah, we can totally play rough inside if the weather's bad.
And I would say Jill's really good of explaining, and I often say you over-explain to the kids at times, but it's probably beneficial.
I need Jill to come over and help me out.
Yeah.
I think Aiden needs some Jill Doyle in his life.
Sophie uses our couch as a jungle gym as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have cozy couches.
We've got a gymnastics bar in the living room too.
Yeah.
Pickler's triangle. She'll make obstacle courses and jump around.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, that's again, our rules
Yeah,
in this house. So,
100%.
yeah, and then
I have to chuckle to myself because when my husband travels for work quite a bit, right? So when I'm putting the baby to bed upstairs, I have a monitor in the living room, right? I typically set Stella up with a movie and a snack while I go upstairs, and I'll watch her on the monitor. And this child, like, she is like scaling things when she is unsupervised, right? Because like I'll typically redirect if things are unsafe, but she's like walking across tables, and and some of that is also my fault too. Like we'll have dance parties in the living room, and I'll like stand on the coffee table, right, and like stand on the
Model
couch.
what we want.
Yeah, and so, but at the same time, it's funny to see what she'll do when I'm not there.
But I love that phrase, let them be dangerous. That is something I'm going to have to tattoo on my arm because right? Like we as humans, we try to avoid the things that feel unsafe or just like, I want to protect you, but he does not belong in a bubble. Kids do not belong in bubbles.
Achtung, baby.
Oh, love it.
What?
Achtung Baby. It's a good book. But it's
Our book club
Okay.
read
the
it.
German way of raising children.
Okay.
There's an American
Put
family
it on
that
my
lived
list.
overseas, and it just talks about the difference of they're encouraging them to risk taking is
Yeah.
so important.
So important.
Because they gave them a safe place to take risks at a playground
Yeah.
because the consequences were low. You might get
Right.
a rope burn. You might
Yeah.
fall.
Well,
but
and these playgrounds were awesome.
no, I want to go to there.
I would love to see them.
So, but as they get older, then they learn, okay, I can take this risk, but that one's a little too much, and I'm not. And if we don't let them do that, then they're never going to know their line. We become they're adult children. They're children who still have that mindset, and now they're adults, and they have at their
Fear.
they have the money, they have the vehicle, they have the things, and then they're making risks that are detrimental.
Do you think your second child is more of a risk taker than your older child?
Mine is.
Mine is.
To be determined for me.
I don't know, how would you answer that? I don't.
I know. My firstborn is very confident in who he is, which a lot of times with birth order, that's not usually the case. But he is more of a, I got to do the right thing. I got to,
First child in
Yes.
that regard, where I got to
Yeah.
be perfect.
yeah. Well, I don't know. They're kind of,
I think Marshall physically
yeah.
will take more risks.
He's the second.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a lot more
all over the
all
place.
over the place.
And you're in
Yeah.
for it.
Sorry, Mrs. Severance.
No, I don't.
Yeah, sorry, Mrs. Severance.
I feel like
all over the place.
even in that book Achtung Baby, they were talking about the playgrounds are all like really natural stuff. Like there's like axes and there's like you
can build fires.
They can
What?
build they
want
can
you to
build,
build
fires. And so like they're using really natural things in the environment, but can do pretty risky things with them. But
Right.
also like there's society and like the way they're supporting
Right, like
families.
how
and,
far have we come?
Well, and I think there's a,
Yeah.
Let's talk about that conspiracy.
I don't know, logistics, environment constraints to that. Not everybody lives like where we are fortunate to live
Right.
now, where we do have a woodshed, we do have the axes, we do have the
They
splitting
go out and
wall,
build
they can go and
fires
build
Yeah.
a fire or whatever.
forts and
Thinking
Will
about
that
like
not be for everybody has that capability
Yeah.
potentially? So that's other things to be thinking about. Maybe we need like that at the playground. I don't know. No.
I don't think
No.
we'll be bringing
I love that, but
axes.
at school, no, we're not doing that.
not-
That's for you to
no.
do at home.
But maybe they can.
It's a joke.
I got really
I picked up that.
There are like
I picked
natural
up that
playground
sarcasm. You did it.
catalogs and companies
Yeah.
that like will provide you like with wooden pieces that are
Well, but
designed
here's-
for building and structure.
Here's a perfect example. We have this beautiful new playground, correct? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at it from the way I raise children.
parent.
And as a parent, yep. And there's the swing in the middle.
Yeah.
And there was a space for kids to run in and out
Natural
of it.
selection right
And
there.
a lot of teachers were like, we can't have this. Bethany Tyler, I love you so much. But we can't have this. They're going to run and they're going to get hit.
Yeah.
And I said, they're going to get hit one time and they're going to remember, I don't run over here.
Right. I mean, the biggest question that we always come up, well, Kevin Christie really enlightened me with this question. He said, "But
Previous
did you,
guest
But did
on
you
the
die?
podcast.
Really?
Also
But
in-
did you
also
die?
in
Did
our
you
wedding.
die?" And so that's the adage that you
That's
often
going to be
kind of
under
turn
that
to.
phrase. Let them be
is,
dangerous,
did you die?
And
but did you die?
But did you die?
What if
Yeah.
it all works
We do
out?
hard things.
What if
We
it
can
all
do
works
hard
out?
things.
Absolutely. Thinking about how we're reframing our thoughts, whether it's for ourselves and for our kids and for all these things. So I love this conversation. I think play is so important. And and we're going to get to that in a hot second. I might skip over some of this because this is just such a good conversation.
Yeah.
Yep. So super quick, I'm going to walk through it because we got to go. So the skill of intent, or the skill of positive intent, is thinking about instead of assuming someone is bad or unworthy, because kids often do that. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We talked about Mark. Earlier in the episode, you talked about the kid with bears, and the teacher responds with, "Oh, how would you feel? How would you feel if someone did that to you?" They're for everybody, and just giving them that tone of like, "That doesn't feel safe," but he's like, "But I want that. That's mine. What if I don't have enough?" And the teacher just responds back with increasing volume and frustration of like, what are you doing? What should you be doing? And we talked a lot about should in the last episode. What's the rule about this? And then she's raising her voice. And then finally she goes to grab the bucket and he ends up hitting her with it. And now he's in the office. She assumed he should be doing things. So she's defining the child as bad. It's in the lower center of your brain, and it's putting them in theirs. We're stuck on blame, we're stuck on punishment, and it's defining them as bad in the eyes of their peers too. So I think that's really important then when we talk to children, knowing who else is around us, because that really does, it is very detrimental. The amount of times I hear kids say, well, that's the bad kid. I'm like, that kid makes some hard choices. They have a skill they need to learn. We're not going to call anybody bad. Versus we're going to assign positive intent. So defining the child as good enough, they are capable of behavior change, keeping us at the higher centers of our brain and helping them stay in theirs, focusing on what we can control. And we are defining the child as somebody who's willing to learn, and they are willing to like be a part of things. It is developmentally appropriate for kids to oppose us. They will say no because they're learning those fine lines. They might say, no, I am going to run through that space. And then when they get knocked and fly from those swings, they're going to learn, like I should have heard that no. That was a no for me now too. Dr. Becky did note that parents who are more passive or more aggressive unconsciously are also inviting children to test more limits as opposed to those parents who are assertive. And that was another call out for me because, man, I can be passive sometimes and I'm like, yeah, nope, I get in power struggles because I allow that. So what we learned about the brain with our nonverbal communication, the implications, those tone of voice can be hurtful. How we come off sends those signals, are they safe or unsafe? And then that is releasing that cortisol or that oxytocin of I am connected with you or I am not safe in this moment. So we can't determine what other people's intentions are unless we ask them. We are not mind readers. Using chapter 8 with empathy and accepting the moment as what it is, we allow ourselves to let them. We've talked a lot about the let them theory. We allow ourselves to let them and let me work through that conflict together. If we are going to make up a child's intention, we might as well make it positive. We are going to do an 11th episode, so I'm making it official here because there's so much content that we need to like go through some of the things that we've missed. So I am going to skip over the act. We were going to do an activity. We get to do it for later. So an overview for parents real quick before we go. Positive intent integrates the brain and produces oxytocin. It's increasing trust and safety and moral behavior. We must be willing to see students, especially those with behaviors and behavior struggles with positive intent, because when we see them differently, they can begin to see themselves differently. When we see the best in others, we hold hope for those who feel hopeless and those that are needing help. It transforms unwilling behavior to willing behavior. So some things to try at home. Reflect on what we unconsciously value. When you're saying don't stand on the sofa, is that something like why? Like why is that thing important to you? We take care of our things, but I might be like, because I don't want you to break your arm, but did they die? So things to think about what we value, right? Look at me taking it all in. We are attributing
Perspective.
we are attributing positive intent to ourselves too. So making sure that we're being kind to our mind. We are consciously, something else to do is to consciously notice how often we're trying to determine someone else's intentions. I'm going to be doing that today, see how far we get. Practice wishing well. So when someone's having a struggle, not feeling ill, will be like, I wish you well, I hope you're going to be okay. And then practice reframing negative intent to positive intent. So before we get going, we have one final thing we have to do. Otherwise, it's not a mindfulness.
Do we have last
episode.
thoughts? I had a thought I wanted to share.
Go ahead while I bring this out.
The part about love and just celebrating the moments, right?
Yes.
And we've talked
I'll
about
tell you.
how we want to shift from the extrinsic motivation, like candy, stickers, things, because it teaches them to value the candies, the stickers, the things. We want them to value performing well and the sake of performing well, to value learning for the sake of learning. And the thing, in the book, it talked about celebrations and all the different ways you can celebrate it. And it said, like, make a little jingle, and it referenced, like, the you did it. And so the challenge I have for us is to come up with, like, a little you did it jingle. Because we've been saying it so much.
Yes.
Like, how do we turn that into a little song, a little jingle? That's what I think we should do.
You know who's
To
going to
take-
do
to
it?
take
Is
that
gonna,
up again.
My middle
Take that
son,
up a notch.
Bennett, is going to end up coming up with something
Yeah.
because that boy can sing with his 2-year-old little heart, and he loves to say, you did it. He was yelling at, he like crawled out of bed the other day and went into the kitchen, and I could hear him, and I was like, what are you doing? And he was in there. He opened the fridge and was getting something. He goes, I did it. I did it. And I was like, you did it. Go to bed. So awesome.
I'm just
So-
picturing like Will Ferrell and Cherry O'Terry in their cheerleading costumes.
I have a kindergarten
As-
roundup
as a
jingle.
jingle.
Just
It's
put
actually
that-
pretty
Oh,
good.
I
Okay.
can't
I
wait.
do. Put it in your back
That's
pocket.
gonna
You
be
want to
so
share it
great.
now?
I mean,
Sing it.
Sing it.
kindergarten roundup. It's time to go to school. And there's more, but my voice was
I
faltering.
can't wait.
I love it.
We're going to like record it in a great way. That'll be
Yeah.
so fun.
Great.
So this is the Wheel of Mischief. You get to spin it, and you get another fun, silly question before we go. So either
Ready?
one, whoever you want. We landed on a 3. Friends.
Ooh. If you were a vegetable, which vegetable would you be and why? Oh, that was number 2.
That's fine. It works.
If you were a
Who spun that?
vegetable.
Was that Andrew?
That was
Andrew. I'm not answering that.
Jill.
I'm gonna say broccoli just because of the SNL kit from,
Broccoli.
skit from yeah.
Broccoli. Look it up.
If look it up, yeah,
What?
Google it.
It's
I'm
Will
gonna have to
Ferrell
Google it.
being George W.
my
Bush,
dad.
making
I
fun
don't know
of
if you
his
knew that.
brother Jeff.
That is his dad. I don't know if you knew.
That's his dad.
The last podcast, yes. And you're related to Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, she's my cousin.
Yeah.
And
I
mine
pay
was
attention.
weird. Yeah, you do. You have to spin it.
Oh, give it a spin.
That's good.
What
Let's
number?
do that one.
Oh, there's no 10.
Which one?
Do this one.
The real number. The number 2 now.
Real number
So what
Okay.
you're saying is this is rigged, another conspiracy
It's
theory.
not.
We haven't
Yeah.
we haven't replenished our
Zach
list.
Tyler said the same thing.
Yeah. So
wrong.
Jill, a
Something about
chicken.
that Lakeville water.
It's pure.
A chicken walks in the door
clean.
right now.
Okay.
It's wearing a top hat. What does it say, and why is it here?
Jill Doyle, you're amazing. Go to prom with me.
I saw Chickaletta in my head, for those of you who watch Paw Patrol, and I'm just like,
Good one.
he says,
I think so.
Why are chickens so funny?
they're hilarious. I love them.
Oh boy.
Jill Doyle, that is my favorite. This might be my favorite part of the whole podcast.
And on that, folks.
I think we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank
Because
you.
that was too good.
That was too good. So thank you, Dr. and Mrs. Doyle, our Doyle duo,
Thanks
for
for having
joining
us.
us today. As always, friends and my co-hosts, thank you for laughing and listening with us on this journey
I
as
teared
we talk about conscious discipline. So thank you for tuning in for episode 9. Until next time,
Stay mindful.
Stay mischievous.
and stay connected. Bye, guys. That was.